Hey adventurers, so today's going to be another book review. This is going to be for The Rising Tide by Jeff Shaara. This is the first book in a World War II historical fiction trilogy. I don't know what the actual the series is like World War II 1939 to 1946 or something like that. I don't remember 1945. 45 would make more sense. But anyways, I don't remember what the actual series title is for this. But anyways, this first book is The Rising Tide, and it is a historical fiction, and it is a World War II, and it tells history of, or tells not a fictionalized, it uses fictional characters to tell about historical events. As I was just saying, The Rising Tide is the first book in a trilogy of World War II historical fiction novels by Jeff Shaara. Although it is fiction, we are following real events and characters which serve to ground us in the story. I love learning about history in World War II, and well, all history, but World War II is one of those ones that I think as Americans we tend to gravitate towards for some reason, and it's fascinating, and I do love learning about it. And when a story is able to present the history while still telling a good story, I love it all the more. That's just really my favorite way to consume history, to learn history. Before I get into the rest of this review though, I just quickly like to say welcome to an Erudite adventure. I am T. If you're liking what you're seeing from us, please like, comment, and subscribe. Alright, so let's go on into this review here. So this book tells a handful of different stories, though they're all directly related in some way, or maybe not directly related, but they're correlatively related. Obviously, having them all be set in World War II is an easy way to to connect them all. But there's a little bit more to it than that. Our main two areas that we're focusing on are North Africa and then Sicily, with a lot of just upper politics and what's the word, administrative stuff going on with the about the war as well. But we focus our two storylines, one of which, as I just mentioned, is the North African storyline. So within this North African storyline, we're following a tank gunner as he and his crew, as well as the other tank crews that around him, are fighting in these North African tank battles during World War II, which is very vague. I understand that. This is the first time that I've actually ever read anything in this, and I feel like Shaara's style of writing is incredibly detailed and immersive for this type of story. I don't know that it would be for every genre, but specifically for a historical fiction like this, it's very engaging and immersive. I was extremely invested in this story and the battles and survival of our characters, but we don't just see this from our fictional American characters' perspective. We also see it through the eyes of, and I'm not going to pronounce it correctly because I don't speak German yet, but Erwin Rommel, who is a German officer and tactician, who is leading the German forces in this battle in North Africa, and these tank battles in North Africa. There's a title that he's given, and I can't think of it. The Red Fox, Desert Fox, maybe, I don't remember. But he's got a specific title that he gained through his notoriety as a brilliant general and tactician in this war. And that contrast between our American and the German is very interesting and becomes really the driving force of the story, because we're seeing how the two characters thought and what they were thinking and why they were thinking the way that they were. As I mentioned, the other main area is Sicily, where the Allies are testing a new type of soldier, which is the paratrooper. And the paratroopers that can be flown in and dropped behind enemy lines in order to wreak havoc. And so it's something brand new. They're just testing it out. They're just trying to figure it out, and they basically send them on their first combat mission. And it doesn't go according to plan perfectly, which is very understandable when you're testing something brand new and people aren't sure what's going on, and it's hard to figure out how to do it all perfectly. It's very understandable that it wouldn't work out perfectly, but it's good storytelling. That's what I'm trying to say. But then first off, learning what and how to be a paratrooper, and then learning how to fight and survive in this new type of warfare is what this section of the story is about. And Shaara's writing again brings out the horror of being a light trooper, a light infantry in a battlefield, in a battle filled with machines and weapons much bigger and more powerful than one soldier who's dropped with just a handful, or just the amount of gear that he can carry on his person, and that's it. There's nothing more. He can't resupply anything like that, and so you're very limited in what you have and what you can take, and you still have to go fight against these overwhelming forces because you are behind enemy lines. You're in the enemy's territory where they can get resupplied, where they have all their weapons and armor depots and everything, and the heroes don't, the allies don't. But we don't just see these very boots on the ground POVs, we also follow General Eisenhower as he tries to navigate the more administrative side of things, his interactions with many other prominent characters in this story, and then the differences in their personalities and the ways of thinking are very clear and creates a fascinating contrast once again. So characters like Eisenhower versus General Patton, who also appears in this story, and stuff like that. So George Patton, Winston Churchill, and then there's many other historical characters that make appearances and interact with our characters. Obviously it would depend on what side they're on, which characters they're interacting with, but even characters like Hitler or people like Hitler make appearances in this novel in order to interact with the characters, in order to further this story and flesh out this story that is being told with The Rising Tide. All of which helps to really paint a complete picture of what is going on at this time, but keeps it grounded by having our main characters that we're following be the reason for the story that's being told. And so this is like our character's perspective, our main character's drives and reasons for fighting and reasons for being where they're at, and the way that they're thinking and what they're fighting for. That is our driving force for this story that keeps our story from just going off into the weeds of the politics, the administrative, the way up higher, not so interesting to a reader, to a fiction reader perspective. If you're just reading for pure history, then yeah, that stuff can be interesting and has lots of historical value. But if you're reading for the story, then you want to be able to be attached to the story, be engaged with the story. So it's not just a history book. And this is first and foremost a story very much heavily tied to these historical events, and the story wouldn't exist without these historical events. And so that it is very much, the history very much so is important to the story as well, but it is a story, and there is a narrative from beginning to the end of this book. And that makes it all the more effective, in my opinion. And all of it ties together into a book that really, for me, was just a great experience. I very much enjoyed listening to this book. I did listen to the book. The audiobook narrator was fantastic. And while this is absolutely far more real than any video game that I've ever played or anything like that, I did find myself thinking back to the various World War II video games, like Battlefield 5, is it? Or V or 5 or whatever. Heroes and Generals, Modern Warfare, World at War, I believe is the one that it was. And so I played several World War II video games, and it brings me back into those things, and what it does is it adds more context to those games for me. And so it's interesting to think back on those games and see how those games portrayed these events as well, and then see it from this historical fiction novel's perspective. Also, I do have just general knowledge from learning about World War II in school, and the times when I've studied it for myself, whatever it might be. Overall, this was one of my favorite books that I read in 2024, and it's an author that I will, without a doubt, be continuing with, as well as this series. There's, like I mentioned, this is a trilogy. This is the first book in a trilogy, and so there's 2 more books that I can read in this trilogy, plus the author has many other books. I don't know how many other World War II books he has. I know there's at least one other World War II book outside of this trilogy, but he's got World War I, he's got Civil War, he's got a whole bunch of different historical fiction novels about really America's involvement in these various wars. And I'm very excited to continue reading the books from him. I very much enjoyed The Rising Tide, and I can't wait to read more and continue learning history, because I do love learning history. It's one of my favorite topics to study, and I don't do nearly enough of it. So anyways, that is my review of The Rising Tide by Jeff Shaara. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and have our social medias linked in the description down below. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay warm.